Welcome back to session 3 of First Steps. In this session, we're going to be talking about how we lead people. Because if you've missed this, you haven't been listening. But the goal of leadership inside of Christ's community is to complete the mission of Christ, which is to go and make disciples. And making disciples is all about relationships, right? It's all about helping other people understand who Christ is and help them to grow more like Christ. It's all about relationships. Leaders are going to work face to face with people who are growing to be more like Jesus. And for that reason, it's important that you understand how we grow disciples. And we call this our next steps process. Now, a lot of this is going to be a review of Foundations 2. Hopefully, you've gotten a chance to take Foundations 2. If you haven't recently, I encourage you to go back and check it out because it's going to go into these ideas much more in depth than we're about to touch on. But as a leader, you need to know this next step process because it's the simplest way to help others grow to be more like Christ. And we have created tools and environments all along the way at CCW that we can help connect people to that next step with. So let's review those next steps. You're going to find this on pages 12 through 13 of your servant leadership booklets. So go ahead, turn over there, follow along with me. And you probably recognize this discipleship wheel. We've had this for a while, right? This might look a little different than the one you've seen before because now we've connected it to our next steps. But just a reminder, as I said in Foundations 2, the first thing that we talked about is identifying the stage of discipleship that someone is at. Identifying the stage of discipleship. I'm not going to talk about that anymore here, but you need to be able to identify the stage, the spiritual maturity that someone is at in order to help them then take the next step that they need to continue growing into the next stage of discipleship. So here are our next steps. And a couple of tips before we start. First of all is this: always start at the beginning. Always start at the beginning, okay? No matter what. It doesn't matter how long you've known the person. It doesn't matter if they've been in the church for 1 year or 50 years. Always start at the beginning. I'm always surprised at the number of people who begin to have conversations about next steps, and then it turns out that they never really surrendered their life to Christ, you know? And we had to start all the way at the beginning and talk about that step first. It doesn't matter if they've been involved in a dozen Sunday schools. It doesn't matter if they're showing up every week. It doesn't matter if they're tithing to the church. None of those other things matter. We start at the beginning. Okay, so when we're having a conversation, we always start at the beginning. Then the second tip I got for you is identify what stage they're at and make the ask. Okay, you're going to make the ask and say, hey, listen, I believe that you're going to be more like Christ, and I want to help you in the process. Here's what I think this looks like. Would you consider meeting with me? Would you consider going out to lunch or going out to breakfast or meeting in a coffee shop or whatever it might look like? Make the ask and then cast that vision for what growth looks like in their life. The third thing is follow up. Follow up with them. Not everybody's going to be ready right away, right? But that doesn't mean they're never ready. So follow up with them after you make that ask. If they show up and you spend some time with them, obviously you want to follow up and make sure that they're actually taking the next step that you guys have talked about together. And the fourth thing is this: use the next step coach. Listen, there's a lot of stuff here, and chances are you're going to be maybe a little confused after all this is over. I'm hoping that this gets explained clearly and that as a result of the training that you've experienced in Foundations 2, that it all makes sense. But we have a team of next step coaches that are there every single time that we have a large gathering together who will help you, who will guide you and help you figure out what this looks like in the life of somebody else. So go ahead, use that resource. So let's talk about these next steps. Now, one of the important things I want you to do as we're talking about these things is I want you to make sure that you've actually taken this next step. So the first step, the first spiritual milestone for every Christ follower is this: they have come to know Jesus Christ, right? We call this step sharing the gospel because the gospel is the good news. And we have a tool called Know Jesus that's specifically designed to help you share the gospel with somebody else. So if you come across someone and they are at this stage, they're spiritually dead and they need to know Christ, you know what to do. You're going to share the gospel with them. Now, you don't have to use our tool. It's just there to help you. If you can grab a Bible and walk them through that without the Know Jesus tool, Great, that's awesome. But we have a tool, Know Jesus, that is designed for you to lead a conversation with somebody else about what it means to know who Jesus Christ is. So if they know Jesus Christ, if they have surrendered to him and have been baptized, then the next step for them is to share Christ habits. Share Christ habits. See, all of us need to learn the basics of what it means to follow Christ. We need to know how to read the Bible and how to pray and how to give and just these ideas that sometimes we take for granted when we've spent time in the church for any amount of time. Basic habits. Now we have a study called Basics that we offer. It's this 12-week study, and you can grab it and do it with somebody else. You can jump into one of our existing basic studies, however you want to do it. But basically, this 12-week study, it goes through the basics of what it means, the basic habits of following Jesus. And so this gives them the basic habits that they'll need to thrive as they continue to be disciples. So someone has come to know Jesus. They have learned the basics. They're studying their Bible. They're praying to God. They're growing in relationship with others. The next step is connecting them to the church. See, God designed the church, the early church, for a purpose. People need community. They need to be connected to a community of other believers. And so we want to help them connect to the church. And the tool that we have for you is Foundations. Now, chances are you've sat through Foundations 1 and Foundations 2 sometimes. That those two classes, they help people understand who we are. They help people understand what we say when we mean becoming a family member. They help people understand what it means to disciple and what we believe our mission is in this world. Lots of good content. Now, part of the thing is we want people to understand who this church is before they decide to partner with it. I mean, that's so important. We don't want people partnering with the church and then suddenly finding out, hey, I don't really believe the same thing, or this makes me really uncomfortable, so come to Foundations with someone, help them partner or connect with the church. After connecting the church, they need to get connected to a disciple maker. That might be you, but maybe it's not. Either way, we want to help people get connected to disciple maker. Our best environment for connecting people to disciple makers are discipleship groups. Every discipleship group is led by a disciple maker. And their job in that group is to help determine what stage a person's at and to help them to continue grow as a disciple of Jesus Christ. So you can get them connected to a discipleship group. Next step, next big spiritual milestone is being equipped to serve. We're currently designing something called our ministry placement team. That team's going to help people figure out what their spiritual gifting is and then find out how they can use that spiritual gifting here inside of the CCW community. After equipping to serve, equip to steward. This is about giving. Now, I believe strongly about this. Our giving is not about a tithe. It's not about a percentage. Jesus Christ said that when you come to him, you're surrendering everything. You know that, right? You're giving everything up. You're saying, Jesus, you're Lord of my life. You're Lord of my stuff. You're Lord of my time. And so stewardship is not only recognizing that we have given these things to Christ, but also recognizing how he would have us use them. And so we have a couple of cool tools. First of all, we have a stewardship challenge, which is just it's a personal study that someone can go through and find out what the Bible has to say about stewardship. We have the tithe challenge, which is a step up from there, where we're actually asking people to commit to giving for a set period of time. And then we also have something we call Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace course. Now, we didn't make this one up. This is just something that we actually teach and practice here, and someone can learn some healthy principles of stewardship, especially in our culture where being in debt and having 1,000 credit cards is the norm. Dave Ramsey helps people figure out the steps that they need to get their money in order so that they can better be a steward of those things that Christ has given them. So go ahead, help them find those things out. And then finally, the final step is to multiply leadership. Multiply leadership. The way we do that is through the Developing Apprentices Guide, and then also servant leader training, which is where you are right now. So those are our steps to help people grow. Now remember, always start at the top, work your way through, help them figure out what stage they're at, and as a result, what step they need to take. Take a moment and figure out which of these steps have you taken. Which of these steps did you maybe skip over or miss on your as you have been growing in Christ. And remember, as a leader, I'm going to hold you accountable to this. You need to know these next steps. You need to be helping others grow in Christ, and you need to have taken these steps yourself.